our game is not so much physical, it's more mental. Toughness to me is being confident no matter what. Almost fake it till you make it, even if you're not confident, but also having the ability to adapt around your situation. Starting off strong is so important in esports because our game is so mental. You want to get in their heads early on. Throughout my whole career almost, I always learn something from a loss.
So why is it got to be so damn tough? So damn tough.
Today we have one of the most badass performers I've ever worked with, but it happens to be a really different type of a story. Emmalee Garrido, by day, is a mild-mannered nurse, and I say that jokingly, but definitely not your average job, right? It's fairly high pressure. What really, really stands out about Emmalee, though, is at night, she is a 5 times world champion esports competitor, and I've been lucky enough to work with her as part of the crossover work underneath Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, the owners of the Philadelphia 76ers. Welcome to the show, Emmalee.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great to have you on board. This is cool because a lot of the people who I normally interview aren't used to sitting on a screen with headsets on, etc. But this is your job. This is what you do. Tell us a little bit about, so for people who don't know, because there are going to be a bunch of listeners who are like, wait, you can get paid playing computer games and there's world championships? Like there's a whole underworld scene, and it's not even underworld now. I happened to go to the Fortnite World Cup a couple of years ago, held at Flushing in Queens, where they hold the US Open tennis. And that blew my mind. That was a moment where I'm like, oh, wow, this is like probably going to be the most popular sport in the world in the next 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. Overtaking everything. Let's come back a little bit. Can you, for the listeners who aren't familiar with it, how does esports, how does playing a computer game work on a global scale? Tell us a little bit about the industry that you perform in.
Right. So I've been kind of at the very start of the whole esports scene. I've been competing for over 16 years now. So a lot of people don't know that it has been there for such a long time, competing in tournaments and also competing in world tournaments. But I think with the power of like social media and the ever-growing innovative technology, a lot more people are noticing the esports world. And that's what's really helped our scene grow, that it's a career. And essentially, me and my team are practicing like a regular sports team, 5, sometimes 6 days a week. And then we have to qualify for tournaments, and we'll have to travel internationally to essentially represent our country. But now my team has a Canadian and a Brazilian on our team, so we're more of a international.
You represent team. The Americas, like the whole continent.
We're representing the whole continent now. And yeah, it's a career. I mean, people, this is their full-time job. It is my full-time job. And I just always compare us to a sports team because that's what we are, even though we're sitting down and we're playing a video game. It's not a fun video game. It's a competitive, we have to win video game for me.
Yeah. So let me grab that then, because that's like part of the question. One of the early questions that we often ask is how'd you end up here? Whether it's Shaquille O'Neal, how'd you end up being one of the most famous athletes of all time, or whether it is the Wolf of Wall Street, or whether it's a Wall Street trader, or whether it's a Wall Street Journal reporter. Like all of these people end up in places because at some point they have a crazy idea that probably not many other people are thinking, and then they just pursue it almost maniacally, almost like a crazy person. And the question then for you is, how do you go from, I used to love playing computer games. I think a lot of our listeners would have.
Yeah.
But how do you go from that to like, I'm not going to do this for fun anymore. This is going to be a job and I'm going to compete and be the best in the world?
Yeah, and again, comparing it to sports, like I like to go and shoot hoops sometimes, but I don't think I'm going to commit my whole day and time to getting good at it and being a professional basketball player. And that's how you have to compare it when you're looking at video games is one day you're going to show up and play against people online and notice that this is a passion of yours and that you can win tournaments from it, and just ultimately devoting your whole day and time to improving and getting better at it. I played soccer my whole life growing up, and I loved the adrenaline rush of when we were playing in events and when it was all on you. I was the defense. So it was all on you to help protect the goal and stuff like that. And that type of adrenaline rush is what I get when I'm competing on the big stages at esports events.
Very cool. Was there a moment? Can you remember a story or a moment where you're like, that's the point where I decided I was going to do this? Like, that's where it stopped being like, oh, that'd be a cool thing, to the point where you were like, I'm all in now.
I knew that I wanted to do this when I first started playing about 16 years ago, but the thing is that it was not a career back then. So that's why I went to nursing school eventually. But it was a thing that I knew that it was going to be big one day because, technology again was growing. And if you ever had gone to an esports event, you'll know how into it we are. Like, it's literally like going to a sports game. We're taunting the opponents. We have fans cheering for us in the crowd. I just knew that one day it was going to be big. And so that's why I couldn't stop thinking about the game. Like, even though I was still in like high school and stuff, I was like, I have to go home and I have to get better. I want to be the best that I can be. And I want people to recognize me and I want a legacy. So it started off really young when I knew that this is something I was going to devote a lot of my time to. And
there's so much more of that journey to explore, because it's one thing to make the decision. It's then, like you said, I want to go home. I want to get better. I want to travel to tournaments. You're probably paying your own way early on. We'll get into that, but one of the questions we ask early of all of our guests, because it kind of frames the rest of the show, is, in your experience, and this is you're an extra cool person to ask this to, because you have two frontiers where this applies. So I'm going to let you answer twice if you want.
Okay.
Maybe the same answer, but you get to take two shots at it. What does toughness mean to you in your fields? So in nursing, which obviously is normally a stressful environment, but also the work that you do in esports, where you've devoted yourself to something that's pretty tough. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of money riding on the big world championships that you've won. What's toughness? Is it the same across those two?
Surprisingly, they're both very relatable, because in the nursing field, I'm a lead nurse, and there, to me, I have to constantly be tough, even in a very stressful environment. And same thing in game. And when there's a lot going on around me, I have to be able to handle that situation, because I'm also the team captain of my team. So being a nurse, especially, you have to be able to think fast and critical thinking. And no matter what decision you make at that point, you have to be confident in it. And showing your confidence, even as a team leader as well in game, showing your confidence and reeking of your confidence, people feel that around you, and your team will also be confident. Nursing field, or whether I'm playing my video game, So toughness to me is being confident no matter what. Almost fake it till you make it, even if you're not confident, but also having the ability to adapt around your situations, because that's something I learned from you too when you were helping us out, is sometimes things don't go the way that you planned, or things you can't control, like lag online or something. I have to be able to handle that situation and adapt around it and use what I have to work with in both nursing and gaming.
For people who aren't aware, that might include me. I think I know what it is, but what's LAD? LAD means
lag.
What?
Lag.
Oh, lag.
Gosh.
My bad.
It's when you have, gosh, how do I describe this?
Is it like when you're on Zoom calls and someone's talking and they go all choppy and it pauses? God, that pisses me off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Imagine playing in a $20,000 tournament and you have that. Yeah,
I can see. I mean, I'm in meetings that are, we're working on stuff that's important, but whether they say the word now or in 5 seconds, it's probably not going to cause us to lose money. And that already frustrates me. So I can only imagine if I was in a tournament and that was going on. You mentioned there the work that we did together over the course of a couple of years. And so it's worth diving in on that. I want to ask you to paint a picture, because I obviously had the experience of being asked to join. I think it was a camp that you guys would normally do, where you came in
a boot camp
as preparation. Yeah. And because the 76ers, who are an NBA team, for those that don't know, have a full bevy of performance support staff, we would kind of drop in and help out where we could. And specifically, there was a request for, do you have psychology or mental stuff? I assume that came from you or the coaches. Why did you feel like that was important for you as a group and even just for you as a performer?
Well, once my team and I got signed by Dignitas, who is owned by the Philadelphia 76ers, and we had access to all the resources that the basketball players had, I quickly realized that everything that a professional basketball player had struggled with or had gone through is very relatable to us as professional esports athletes. So I wanted to be able to dive into everything. And our game is not so much physical, obviously, because we're sitting down more often. It's more mental. So to me, having psychologists or someone that can help us on the mental area was going to be super important because it's very stressful. Some days we're crying, some days we're mad. Like, that's all mental. And when we're playing in a tournament, we don't have time to figure out how to fix it then. So during that boot camp, I wanted to be able to create tools that we could use to quickly relieve any mental barriers during a tournament.
And it was really cool for me to talk with you girls. And I had the inkling, I probably shared the same view of you, that it seems pretty relatable. Humans are humans, and when they're under pressure, they have to deal with similar internal obstacles, even if the external world's different.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really cool to hear you guys talk about it, and it kind of confirmed that thought. Is there an element of that stuff that you carried on, and you're like, hey, that's actually something that we probably still do now, like a few years later, particularly with reference to, like you said, there's probably two parts to it. One is the in-between times when you're crying or you're mad or you're tired because you're on tour, all the other shit that comes with being away or being in a pressure cooker environment. And then the second part is like in the competition, like when the game's on, like you said, you don't have time to think, you don't have time to feel. We just got to do our shit. Is there one from each of those or either of those you're like, you know what, that was something that we really found worked for us?
One thing that we repeat often that you had told us is that the game doesn't care how we feel and you just need to play. Because so many things come up that it's just like, okay, this is making me mad, this is making me frustrated. But you're right, the game doesn't care that we're mad. Like we just have to show up and we just have to give it our best, because if we don't give it our best, then all of our weeks of preparation was just a complete waste of time. And another thing that you told us is that we're here for a reason, and we're obviously good at what we do, so just do what we do. It's as simple as that. And sometimes your mind is just blocking these thoughts from you. So that was one of the best advice I think you told us.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, and if my track record suggests correctly, I probably said it with a little worse language than you just said it.
You did.
But the essence is still there. And that's the whole thing. Like, it's about, like you said, these things are pretty simple. It's about just making them, keeping them front of mind, but also making them work for you. Because sometimes the strong language works for some people and other times it doesn't. And I'm sure my listeners have heard me say this with the language included before, but the game doesn't give a shit how you feel, right? Life doesn't give a shit how you feel. That's one of the regular things I might talk about with performers. But the underlying essence of that is it's really just removing the shoulds from what we carry into a scenario. Like, I should be feeling confident. Yeah, why? Why should you? Like, who said you should feel confident all the time? I should, the ref should make the right call. Yeah, why? Like, who said refs are going to always make the right call? Like, that's not a part of the agreement. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something earlier that I want to circle back to about particularly the in-game mode, but I am sure it happens in nursing under pressure. The concept of, you got to make a decision and then just go. You can't second guess your decision. And once you've gone, you've got to be all in on it. You can't be half in on it and waiting for something else to play out, right? And so I want to go all the way back to that time in your teenage years when you were like, hey, I'm going to try and make this a thing, right? It's kind of a crazy decision because even at that time, similar to a chat I had a few weeks ago with a former WNBA player, who at the time of her teenage years going into college, there was no, you couldn't be a professional female basketball player. And here she is, she's played for 15 years now. At that point, it's kind of a crazy decision. And there would have been plenty of opportunities for you to not do that, right? To not persist, to not keep turning up and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. How did you go about staying committed to your decision, even when it didn't seem like the right thing at various points in time?
Well, when I made the decision to go to nursing school, I stopped competing for about a year. And during that entire year, I could not stop thinking about going back and competing. So I knew this was just more confirmation for me that competing in esports is me. It's what I love to do. It's what I'm passionate about. It's something I will literally devote my entire time to. And that point with when I was in nursing school was again like just confirmation of, even though it wasn't a career at the time, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it even if I don't make money doing it. And it's just a bonus now.
That's a cool feeling to have. And obviously you've got a supportive husband or partner who's helped you through that. One of the things we talk about during all of these interviews is that toughness is sometimes presented in society as a solo act, right? And it is, in essence, like when you're in the middle of a gunfight, a virtual gunfight, then there's elements of it that are like you have to be good at your shit and no one else can help you with that at that moment. But that's kind of a very narrow view, particularly when we're talking about life-sized toughness and dealing with things at work or in our life that are bigger than sometimes just being good at a game, whether it's sport or esports, or being good at our job. And what's your experience in terms of the balance for you of, okay, you've got to be tough yourself versus having people around you who help you be tough in other ways?
Well, so firstly, in terms of being a team captain for my team, for me, having my team trust me is something that is super important because I want my teammates to be able to connect with me in game and out and know that they can come to me for literally anything, because that type of trust I can always rely on a day that I'm not as tough as I should be. And I know that they'll be there to back me up too. And that's what makes a good team, I think, is just utter trust. And same thing with my nursing environment. I want my coworkers to know I'll have their back no matter what. I will support them. I'm always there to help them if they have a question. No question can be a dumb question. I want to help. And so that's created a really good environment, both in game and out. And then I have my husband, who is someone I definitely rely on a lot on my really hard days because he's just totally opposite from me. I don't know how he's so calm. I'm just always like, I gotta go do this. I gotta go over here and do this. Like I'm constantly multitasking. So I always go back to him as my support. Support is important because I always say, I'm so strong. I'm so tough. I got this thick skin. But ultimately, some days we all just need a little bit of support from somebody. And he's also the coach of our team, so that's helpful. We find a nice balance to be able to switch off work between our relationship. So when the computer's off, I can go and do that. So that's nice.
That's cool. That's cool. Very unique. So how do you go about, as the captain or as the lead nurse, how do you go about giving that support? Because some of the people listening are leaders in their various disciplines. How do you go about helping someone else who is probably struggling with what they need their mental or emotional strength for at that time?
I definitely want to let them know that they can, I'm always open and free. And I've learned so many different tools throughout my life, I feel like, of how to handle a hard question or stress if a teammate comes to me or a coworker. So what I like to do is I'll sit down with them, and I'm a very visual person, so I like to write out what a problem is if we can't figure it out talking, and literally go through a bunch of different outcomes and what we're most happy with. And I think that's best because I'm helping them critically think different situations in their brain that they could have done on their own, but because they were so stressed, it was blocked. So I'm able to communicate with them all different outcomes based off of the decision that they make. And I think that's a really good way to help people, for me at least, to be able to think like, oh yeah, I did come up with this. Thank you.
That sounds like a little bit like coaching almost. In your eyes, what's the key mental or emotional trait of top performance in either of the areas either of the waters you swim in?
Emotional trait. Would adrenaline fall down on that? Like a fight or flight adrenaline? Is that
Ooh,
something?
absolutely. Tell me more. Like, you mean having that and being able to harness it, or not having that so that you're cool as ice?
Well, I think I feel like as competitors, we're always on that fight mode for the adrenaline fight or flight. Like we never are going to run away from a situation. And that's one of the reasons why I love competing is that's one of my favorite. It's not an emotion. It's one of my favorite ways to handle things is the fighting one. If that makes sense. I don't know how to word it, but
Yeah,
it's
no,
true.
no.
Like anger is my funnest emotion. I think it's such a fun way to handle things, if I can say.
Oh, you absolutely can. That's such a cool way to put it. Anger is my funnest emotion. The reason I'm picking up what you're putting down is because there's a couple of things. So in the psychology world, depending on what school you were schooled in, some of them talk about approach behaviors. And we kind of spoke about this with your group of like, okay, things might be shit, but you can do two things. You can either do behaviors that try and avoid the bad feelings, or you can do things that'll move you towards better feelings. The bad feelings are still going to be there. You're going to feel anger. You can't make anger go away unless you avoid what you're trying to do, or unless you get out of the fire, right? And so I hear you say that, and it kind of it's comforting for me because it sounds like you've actually ingrained it. But there's also the element of being able to take your emotion and play emotional judo with it, almost like that. Negative emotions aren't bad unless we treat them like bad. Like anger can be really good. Anger can be invigorating. It can light you up. Now, used the wrong way, obviously, it can be really bad, but it's just energy. Every emotion is just energy. And all it is, okay, what am I going to do with that energy?
Oh my gosh, talking to you right now, I feel so ready to play in my tournament this weekend.
So tell us about that. Like I should have mentioned that at the start of the show. This is a very unique episode because Em is about to go and play in a tournament in what, an hour, 2 hours?
Yeah. And then we have another one this weekend. Yes.
Right. So we're basically in pre-game mode, right? This is everyone just close their eyes and imagine we're in a locker room. Imagine yourself in sport. We're in the bellies of the stadium. The athletes are getting ready. And here we are talking to the captain of a team who's about to lead her team out into tournament mode, not only tonight, but also over the weekend. And so tell me what this experience is like. Like as you get ready, and I know that from playing and from coaching and being around it for a while, that a quiet falls over the locker room. People get really focused, but there's this nervous energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what happens for you guys?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely, especially because we're back-to-back world champions. We accept nothing less than winning. So not winning is almost unacceptable. I work way too hard not to win. I really do. I sacrifice so much time with my friends and family because I want to win. That's my life goal is just winning, winning, winning in tournaments with my team. We work so hard. So of course you're going to get a little bit nervous before you play, but instantly when I'm in the server, or you can think instantly when you're on that field, the nerves go away and you're ready to play. And so, like I said, I have adrenaline rushes thinking about playing. It's one of my favorite feelings. It brings joy to me. And winning brings that accomplishment feeling, which is also really nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's, I think it was Will Smith who said, all the best things in life are on the other side of fear. They're like, there's these bad feelings, but if you're happy to just sit with them for a bit or move through them, look at all the good shit on the other side. There's the feeling of accomplishment. There's the adrenaline of winning. There's all the good stuff that comes with moving through that. And I'm curious, for you, having been in those environments, like you said, back-to-back world champion, playing on big stages for, those big cardboard cutout checks that everyone sees people hold. I've seen you hold a few of these. So there's big things on the line, big bright lights on a stage, people watching, and not just people in the stadium, millions online. Talk us through that moment as you're, let's say, using the hockey terminology, the puck is about to drop or the ball is about to get thrown up in basketball for the tip. Like, what's that like in esports where they're about to press play? Tell us about those 10 seconds. Like, what are you feeling at that time? What's your attention on? How do you harness either your anger or your adrenaline or your nerves? Like what's happening in that little special space?
Well, to be quite honest, I probably have almost a big smile on my face because I'm like, yes, we're here and we're ready. We practice so hard. And I like to give a little bit of like a motivational speech to my team because I want them to feel my confidence going into a game. And I definitely feel like pressure is a privilege, and that's a really good feeling to have, is pressure and this anger if you don't win, because it's gonna push me a little bit extra to go and push past whatever feeling I'm feeling to try to get that win. And when you're talking about like, the puck's about to drop on the floor, like that's us when it's about to go in the first game. You want to start off strong and you want the other team to be shaking in their boots. So starting off strong is so important in esports because our game is so mental. You want to get in their heads early on.
And I've heard you say anger or aggression or adrenaline, like now that you've mentioned it explicitly, I've heard it come out like 5 or 6 times, right? I want to grab on that because it is really cool. It's unusual to hear from, you've got such a petite voice and you're such a sweet girl that you're like, yeah, but I want to crush him. So it's a nice dichotomy, but it's not unusual to hear that from elite performers. And here's one of the other things that I wanted to mention before. In a lot of the research around elite performers, let's say we did one study that was over, I think, 8 teams in baseball. So a bunch of different athletes. And they were like, oh, what were they rated when we drafted them? And then by the time they made it to the majors, how were they? Like some of them flopped and some of them popped. And what we did by like digging right into the data was we found 2 or 3 things mentally that actually predicted whether someone was going to, what they would say, return on investment of the draft. So we spent a first round pick on them. They should pay us back an all-star. That's what we should expect with that pick, right? And what we found was the number one predictor was competitiveness, not how focused they could be, not how gritty they were. All these things were important, but the number one predictor was how competitive they were. And in particular, here's a really cool bit for nerds like me and for ultra competitors like you, is that it was their ability to, regardless of the scoreboard and regardless of whether they were going to get recognized, they just wanted to keep fighting. And not about grit, like for goals. It's like right now, if we're playing table tennis, I might be behind 19-0, but I'm going to still be just as engaged in the next point. And if anything, I'm going to be more engaged because I'm angry that I'm losing and I want to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the approach to continue to compete as opposed to, oh, screw this, I'm throwing my tennis racket and I'm out of here. Which I wanted to highlight because it's really you talking about the way you handle your anger and that it's actually you view it as a good thing. That's a really unique way to view it, but it can be the game changer.
Let me start off by saying it has not always been like that. So I am very, very competitive. And, if I lose a game when I was younger, I lost a very important game and I did break my hand from punching a wall.
Your hand? I was about to say, how many consoles have you broken? How many controllers?
My
you broke your hand?
My hand. I broke my hand. Like I said, I have to be able to handle that anger. Like there is a certain level to it. Now that I'm getting older, I've learned to deal with it. But when I was younger, I did punch a wall and I broke my hand right before a big tournament. So I didn't tell my team actually that I broke my hand for a while. And I show up to the tournament and they're like, what is that on your hand? So I had a cast that I could take on and off. I told the doctor I didn't want a hard cast. But I didn't want to make excuses for me not playing that. So I still played. I still showed up even with a broken hand and we won the tournament too, by the way. But being able to handle the anger is something I had to learn along the way. It's not something like, I can't sit here and lie to you and say I was good with it from the start because I wasn't. But now I'm, like you said, I'm realizing it's what pushes me. Like the anger is good. I have to be able to handle it from a level. It's what really, it keeps me from not giving up when we're down. It keeps me motivated. It's something that's good for in-game and my competitiveness, but I have to be able to control it.
What happens for you if you're not angry? Because I think of my own journey as an athlete, and I was super pissed between the age of maybe 16 and 19. And that was my super acceleration phase, got drafted in the first round. Like it really drove me. And then I kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm pretty good now. And I feel like my edge went away a little bit. It came back pretty quick because there were some other setbacks. But if you're not angry, are you not as good?
Oh, that's tough to answer. No, not necessarily. Because sometimes a game could be we're just smashing the other team. So I'm going to be calm. I don't need to use all of my emotions when we're just smacking a team, you know?
Yeah.
So it really just depends on the situation. And my teammates are all different. So I have to be able to talk to them all differently. Some of them take anger as well. Like, I'm like, come on, guys. Like, we worked too hard for this to go down without a fight, you know, and others can't handle that. So I have to be able to talk to each one person differently. So as a team captain, I have to remember the situation, being able to adapt. It's so important, whether you're a competitor or not, even in real life, you have to be able to adapt with what's around you.
Yeah, I mentioned, I think I called it emotional judo before, or mental judo, but really one of the key concepts of it, some of the stuff that I worked on with you guys was what we would call emotional flexibility. Like whatever the emotions are that come up, there's no, sure, there might be one you prefer, but generally you're going to get different emotions on different days in different moments. And it's your ability to deal with all of them, whether it's your teammate feeling sad, someone being ecstatic, you feeling anger, whatever it might be. So I think you've really summed it up well there. We're starting to get towards the end, and I know you have to go and get your pregame on. So 2 more questions. One, is there a specific highlight that you look back on and you're like, that was like, we've talked a little bit about hardships, about how you learn from failure. You had to work out your anger stuff, etc. Is there a good time that you've learned from during your career so far where you're like, yeah, we won that, and here's what I like, that was actually really helpful. It was a huge highlight, but also I got this out of it.
Yeah, I'm immediately thinking about a world championship tournament that we won. So if someone's listening who's not familiar with esports, with my game particularly, our match could last about 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours. So imagine playing in a big tournament for 3 to 4 hours for just one game. We might have 3 in one day. So, of course, this game was the longest game of the day in the finals, and it lasted to like the full length of time. And we really gave it our all. And there was a point in time where we were starting to lose a little bit, but throughout my whole career almost, I always learn something from a loss. And so because we were starting to lose some rounds, I was able to tell the team, listen, like, forget the score. We need to think of it as one round at a time, one goal at a time to get our way back up. So because if you have shorter, I don't know how to describe this well, but instead of thinking, oh, I have to get 10, it's easier to think, oh, we just need to get 1. And then when you get that 1, okay, just 1, you know? So that's something that I learned along my whole entire career that I was able to apply in this grand finals to win the world championship of IM Katowice in Poland. So that was a really cool moment to be able to think back.
That is very cool. And that skips the next question I was going to say. What's a simple takeaway that listeners can apply? And that's really, it's a great one, being able to chunk down your bigger goals, particularly if you're falling behind. Don't feel like you got to eat the whole elephant all at once. So last thing I want to ask is, given what you've achieved so far, so like 5 world championships, you're the captain of one of the best teams in the world, you've achieved so much. What are your goals? What's your hope? Like, what do you hope to achieve in both the rest of your career, but even by potentially coming on shows like this? Like, it's obviously an important area for you. What's your hope?
Well, I guess 2 things is, one, for people to recognize esports as a sport. You know, everything a professional athlete does in a sports team is what me and my team do. We work so hard for so many hours. Like you mentioned before pregame, when a team's in a locker room, that's exactly what we do before we go on a stage. We hype each other up. We've got this music. You know, we're competitors and we want to represent our country or continent proud. And that, just like in sports, girls can do it too. We work just as hard as everybody else. And in terms of mental health, because that's the field I work in for nursing and the addiction field, I want to be able to, my hope one day is to be able to combine nursing with mental health, somehow help people who might be struggling, just get people talking about it, just let people know gaming is a really good outlet to help. So gaming has done nothing but do good for my life. So yeah.
Very cool. I know that gaming definitely helped me during the first shutdown of the pandemic, I dusted off the old PlayStation, and I was amazed at how good I still was at Madden and NBA 2K. Not the real games, not like what you play for a living. These are more just things that I grew up with as a teenager. But wow, it's funny. Someone said to me at one point when I was talking about the esports industry, total aside, but I was like, I wonder why it's so big and it keeps getting bigger. They're like, well, you never stop being a gamer. Like, if you were a gamer when you were in your teens, someone dusts off a PlayStation and loads up that old game, you're like back at it. It's like being at it. So,
cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. So, Em, want to say thank you for joining us, for sharing your experience. We share that hope that you have around, specifically for you nurses and helping with the mental health of nurses, but also for the wider population. And I'm sure some of what you've shared here, your own experience, you're a living example of someone who's gone to the next level, both in your performance, but also in looking after that area of your life. So hopefully, and I'm sure it has, that will inspire others who are listening to take the same path. Thank you so much. Good luck for the tournament.
We got
Hope you kick ass. As a great note to finish off on, I used to love getting emails from you maybe a month or two after we'd done our little camps saying, hey, we won, fuck yeah, or whatever it might have been. You might have not have sworn, but I think I did fuck that. And so I'm looking forward to getting another one after this weekend.
Yes, me too. I will definitely let you know.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate you.
All right, take care.